The chamber was larger than any building on Earth. It stretched upward for nearly a mile, its crystalline walls glowing with the light of 1,000 different suns captured from across the galaxy. 700 alien delegates sat in tiered sections that rose like mountains around a single platform at the center. Ambassador Victor. Kane stood on that platform alone. He was a tall man with gray hair and steady hands. Behind him, through the massive observation windows, he could see the Galactic Council's headquarters station. It was the size of a small moon, orbiting a star so ancient that humanity had only recently learned its name. This station had been the seat of power for 12,000 years. Every major species in the known galaxy had bent the knee here. Now it was humanity's turn. High Counselor Vorath descended from his elevated position, his body made of shifting geometric light that hurt human eyes to look at directly. He had ruled this council for 3 centuries. He had watched empires rise and fall. He had never seen a species quite like the one standing before him now. Ambassador Kane, Vorath said, his voice translated through devices embedded in the chamber's walls. You represent the species known as humanity. Your world is called Earth. You have been traveling among the stars for less than 200 years. That is correct. High Counselor, then you understand what this moment means. Vorath gestured to the assembled delegates. Every species in this chamber has signed the Integration Compact. It is the foundation of galactic civilization. It grants access to trade routes, technology sharing, military protection, and diplomatic recognition. Without it, a species is nothing, an outcast, alone in the darkness between stars. Kane nodded slowly. I understand. Then you also understand that refusing the compact is not an option. It has never been refused. Not once in 12,000 years. The chamber was silent. 700 pairs of alien eyes watched the lone human standing on the platform. Most expected him to bow, to sign, to become another member of the galactic community, bound by treaties that had served the Council's interests for millennia. Victor. Kane reached into his jacket and pulled out a data tablet. Every weapon system in the chamber immediately locked onto him. Security drones hummed to life. Shields activated around the council members. Kane waited dot when nothing happened, when no attack came. The chamber's tension shifted into something else. Confusion. This is humanity's response to the Integration Compact, Kane said calmly. He placed the tablet on the speaking podium, and a holographic display appeared above it. And to the Mutual Defense Treaty, and to the Resource Sharing Agreement, and to every other document you have presented to us over the past 18 months. The display showed a single word, repeated over and over in every language known to the Council. ... The chamber erupted. Delegates rose from their seats, shouting in languages that the translation systems struggled to process. Delegate Kryn, a massive creature with 6 arms and scales like polished bronze, slammed his fists against his desk with enough force to crack the ancient stone. This is madness. Kryn roared. You are one species on one world. You have no fleet, no allies, no power. What do you think you are doing? Kane turned to face Kryn directly. There was no fear in his eyes, no hesitation. We are declining, Kane said simply. High Counselor Vorath raised a limb of pure light, and silence crashed down upon the chamber like a physical force. The ancient being studied Kane with an intensity that had broken stronger wills than any human possessed. Ambassador Kane, Vorath said slowly, you realize that declining the compact means total isolation. Your system will be quarantined. No trade, no technology exchange, no protection under galactic law. If another species decides to attack your world, we will not intervene. We understand. Then explain yourself. Why would any rational species choose isolation over integration. Kane straightened to his full height. For a moment, despite being surrounded by beings of immense power and ancient wisdom, he seemed like the largest presence in the room. "Because we have read your treaties carefully," Kane said. "We have studied every clause, every provision, every piece of fine print that your diplomats tried to hide. And we have concluded that what you call integration is actually subjugation." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "The Integration Compact grants you access to our resources without fair compensation. The Defense Treaty requires us to send our soldiers to fight your wars without any say in when or why those wars are fought. The technology agreements ensure that we remain permanently dependent on your systems, never developing our own. Every treaty in this collection is designed to benefit the established powers at the expense of new species." "That is a dangerous accusation," Voreth said quietly. "It is the truth." Kane looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates who quickly looked away. "I wonder how many species in this room signed these treaties without understanding what they were agreeing to. I wonder how many realized too late that they had traded their freedom for the illusion of security." The silence that followed was different from before. This silence was uncomfortable, guilty. "We request a recess of 30 standard days," Kane continued. "During that time, we suggest the Council carefully consider whether they want to maintain these treaties as they are, or whether they might be open to negotiation." "Negotiation?" Kryn laughed, but the sound was hollow. "You have nothing to negotiate with. You are primitives. You have no leverage." "Colonel." Maria Torres stepped forward from the small human delegation behind Kane. She was a woman of middle age with sharp eyes and the bearing of someone who had commanded troops in difficult situations. "Actually," she said, "we have quite a bit of leverage. You simply have not seen it yet." She activated a second holographic display. This one showed Earth, peaceful and blue, spinning slowly in the darkness of space. "You have been watching our planet for centuries," Torres said. "You have cataloged every ship we have built, every rocket we have launched, every satellite we have placed in orbit. You believe you know everything about our capabilities." The display shifted. The peaceful image of Earth faded, replaced by something else. Coordinates. Hundreds of them, scattered across the Sol system and beyond. "You were wrong." The chamber fell into absolute silence. Kane and his delegation turned and walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the massive chamber, the only sound in a space designed to hold thousands of voices dotted the door. Kane paused and looked back. 30 days, High Counselor. Use them wisely." The door sealed behind the human delegation, and in the silence that followed, High Counselor Voreth realized something he had not experienced in 300 years. He was afraid. He was afraid of what those coordinates meant. He was afraid of what the humans had been hiding. And most of all, he was afraid that the galaxy he had controlled for so long was about to change in ways he could not predict. Because no species had ever said no before, and no species had ever smiled while doing it. The emergency session began before the human shuttle even left the station. Reports were demanded. Intelligence assets were activated. And across the galaxy, in shadows that the Council did not know existed, other species began to watch very carefully. Humanity had thrown down a challenge, and everyone wanted to see what happened next. The observation vessel Silent Watcher had been monitoring the Sol system for 300 years. Its crew of Talvari observers were known throughout the galaxy for their patience and attention to detail. Commander Raxus had personally catalogued every significant development in human civilization since they launched their first primitive rockets. He had never seen what his sensors were showing him now. "Commander," his sensor operator reported, "I am detecting structures in the asteroid belt. Large structures. They were not there during our last detailed scan. That scan was 6 months ago." "Show me." The holographic display zoomed in on a section of space between the fourth and fifth planets of the human system. What appeared to be unremarkable rocks resolved into something far more disturbing. Massive facilities, each one several kilometers long, built into hollowed-out asteroids. Their surfaces were covered with camouflage technology that Raxes had never encountered before. "How many?" he asked. 47 confirmed. Energy signatures indicate manufacturing operations. Heavy machinery. Advanced materials processing. Raxes felt his blood run cold. They have been building. Right under our sensors. For how long? Unknown, Commander. But based on the size and complexity of these facilities, I would estimate decades at minimum. Contact the Council immediately. Priority transmission. The message reached the Galactic Council headquarters within hours. By the time it arrived, High Counselor Vorath had already convened an emergency session of the Inner Powers. The 12 founding species who had created the Council 12,000 years ago. They met in a chamber that did not officially exist. Its walls were shielded from every known form of surveillance. Only the most powerful beings in the galaxy knew of its location. "The humans have been deceiving us," Vorath announced. "For decades, possibly centuries. They have hidden manufacturing capabilities throughout their system. They have developed camouflage technology our sensors cannot penetrate. And they have done all of this while appearing to be a primitive species. Barely capable of reaching their own moon." Delegate Kryn slammed a massive fist against the table. "Then we destroy them. Now, before they can use whatever they have been building. And if what they have been building can fight back?" Elder Morvax, the ancient leader of the Mindari, spoke through telepathic projection. His physical form floated in an atmospheric sphere, but his mental presence filled the room. "We know nothing about their true capabilities. We assumed they were primitives because they wanted us to assume that. You suggest we do nothing? I suggest we learn more before acting." Morvax's telepathic voice carried undertones of concern that he rarely displayed. "I touched the surface thoughts of their ambassador during the council session. He was not afraid. He was not bluffing. He genuinely believed that humanity held the superior position." Vorath's geometric form flickered with agitation. "How is that possible? Even with hidden facilities, they cannot match the combined military power of the founding species. Unless they are not alone." The chamber fell silent. Grand Inquisitor Palax, leader of the Mentori Investigation Corps, spoke for the first time. His body was a collection of crystalline spheres, each containing what appeared to be a captured star. "I have been reviewing our intelligence archives. There are gaps, unexplained phenomena in the outer regions of human-explored space. Ships detected briefly and then vanishing. Energy signatures that match no known technology." "What are you suggesting?" "That the humans may have made contact with someone else. Someone we have not yet encountered. Someone who has been helping them prepare." The implications hung in the air like poison not far away, on Earth. Director James Wright watched the Council's closed session feed on a screen that should not have existed. The Galactic Council believed their communications were perfectly secure. They were wrong. They are beginning to understand, Wright said to the woman standing beside him. Colonel Maria Torres nodded. But they do not understand enough. Not yet, no. That comes next. Wright activated a communication channel that connected to a ship 300 light-years away. The flagship Unity, pride of humanity's hidden fleet, responded immediately. Admiral Helena Cross appeared on the screen. She was a woman in her 60s, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much war to be impressed by alien threats. "Director, is it time?" "Almost. The Council is sending observers to investigate our system more thoroughly. When they arrive, make sure they find exactly what we want them to find. And the rest?" Wright smiled. It was not a warm smile. The rest stays hidden. For now, the Council's investigation fleet arrived in the Sol system 12 days later. 20 ships, equipped with the most advanced sensors the founding species could provide. They spread out across human space, scanning everything they could reach. What they found exceeded their worst fears. The hidden facilities were not manufacturing civilian goods. They were producing warships. Hundreds of warships. Vessels of unfamiliar design, bristling with weapons that defied analysis. Powered by energy systems that matched nothing in Council databases. Commander Raxis, now attached to the investigation fleet, reviewed the data with growing horror. "This is impossible," he said. "Where did they get this technology? These power signatures do not match any known species. These weapon systems are completely alien to Council records. And these ships are larger than anything we have ever seen humans build." His science officer shook his head. "Commander, I cannot explain it. But there is more. We have detected installations on their moon, on their fourth planet, on moons around their outer gas giants. The humans have not been idle during their supposed primitive period. They have been busy. Busy doing what? Preparing. For something. Or for someone." The report reached the Council within hours. The emergency session that followed was the most chaotic in recorded history. Delegates shouted over each other. Ancient alliances cracked under the pressure of fear. And High Counselor Voreth struggled to maintain any semblance of order. "We must act immediately." Kryn roared. "Before they finish building their fleet. We can still overwhelm them with numbers. And start a war we might not win?" Morvax countered. "We do not know what else they have hidden. We do not know who might be helping them. Rushing into combat against an unknown enemy is precisely what they would want us to do. Then, what do you suggest? We simply wait while they grow stronger? I suggest we negotiate." The word fell into the chamber like a stone into still water. Negotiate with a species that had refused every treaty. With primitives who had somehow hidden a war fleet from galactic surveillance. With humans, Voreth raised a limb of light. The Council will consider both options. But first, we require more information. Grand Inquisitor Palax, I am authorizing a full intelligence operation. Find out everything about the humans. Their leadership. Their decision-making processes. Their weaknesses. Palax's crystalline spheres glowed brighter. And when we find those weaknesses, then we will decide whether to destroy them or to offer terms they cannot refuse. Far across the galaxy, in a system that Council records listed as uninhabited, Admiral Helena Cross received a priority message from Earth. "They took the bait," Director Wright reported. "They are sending investigators, spies. They think they can find our weak points. Can they? Only if we let them." Wright's voice carried a hint of amusement. "But we are not going to let them. We are going to show them exactly what we want them to see. And when they report back to the Council, their fear will be even greater than before." "What about the real operation?" Wright paused. When he spoke again, his voice was deadly serious. "The real operation continues. Phase 2 is on schedule, and when it is complete, the Council will have a choice to make. Cooperate with humanity or face the consequences." Admiral Cross looked out the observation window of the Unity. Behind her ship, hidden in the darkness between stars, a fleet was gathering. A fleet that the Council could not imagine. A fleet that would change the galaxy forever. And if they choose consequences, then they will learn what humanity is truly capable of. And they will wish they had chosen cooperation. The connection ended. Cross returned to her command chair, where her officers waited for orders. "All ships," she said quietly. "Maintain position. Silent running. We wait for Phase 2. In the darkness, Engines powered down. Weapons went cold. And humanity's true strength remained hidden, waiting for the moment when it would finally be revealed. The Council thought they were the hunters. They were about to learn that they had always been the prey. The Galactic Council did not become the dominant power in the galaxy by accepting threats from lesser species. Within 3 days of receiving the intelligence reports, High Counselor Vorath had authorized the largest military mobilization in 500 years. 800 warships gathered at the Corvan staging ground, a massive military installation on the edge of Council space. Battle cruisers from the Thresk Empire, crystal destroyers from the Velori Collective, mine ships from the Mindari Federation. Every major power contributed vessels to the fleet that would teach humanity its place. But Vorath was no fool. A direct assault on Earth would be costly, even with overwhelming numbers. The humans had proven themselves more capable than anyone had anticipated. They might have hidden defenses that even their investigation fleet had not detected. So he chose a different approach. In a star system called Talvos, there lived a species of peaceful avian beings who had been under Council observation for 3 centuries. They were scheduled for integration within the next 50 years. Their technology was limited. Their military was non-existent. They posed no threat to anyone. They were also one of the 14 species that humanity had secretly contacted over the past decades. "We will make an example," Vorath announced to the inner powers. "We will show the galaxy what happens to those who align themselves with the humans. The Talvosi will be disciplined. Their world will be blockaded. And when the other species see what we have done, they will think twice before answering humanity's call." 15 Council battlecruisers entered the Talvos system on a cold morning in the Galactic Standard Calendar. They established orbit around the peaceful world below and activated their weapons. Not to fire, simply to demonstrate power. The Talvosi leadership received a simple message: renounce all contact with humanity, or face consequences. They had 24 hours to comply. The news reached Earth within minutes. Director James Wright received the report in his underground command center beneath the Swiss Alps. His face remained calm, but his hands tightened into fists. "They are using the Talvosi to send a message," Colonel Torres said. "Attack our allies. Show others that we cannot protect them." "It is a smart move," Wright admitted. "If we do nothing, we lose credibility with every species watching. If we respond with force, we start a war before we are ready. Then what do we do?" Wright was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to a communication console and entered a code that only 3 people on Earth knew existed. "We invoke the Accord," the message that broadcast across the galaxy 6 hours later shook the foundations of interstellar politics. It was not from humanity alone. It bore the signatures of 14 species, the primitives that the Council had been preparing to absorb. Each signature was accompanied by a declaration of membership in an organization that most believed had died 10,000 years ago: the Stellar Accord, a mutual defense pact created before the Council rose to dominance, an alliance of smaller species who had banded together against larger powers. Its charter had never been officially dissolved. Its provisions, technically, were still in effect. And now, according to this broadcast, it had been reborn. "Any attack on a member of the Stellar Accord is an attack on all members," Ambassador Victor Kane announced in the transmission. "The blockade of Talvos is an act of aggression against a sovereign world under Accord protection. We demand the immediate withdrawal of all Council forces." The Council's response was predictable: fury, denial, claims that the Accord was a legal fiction with no binding authority. But the galaxy was watching, and the galaxy remembered the Accord. Species that had been absorbed by the Council over millennia suddenly remembered stories their ancestors had told. Stories of a time before council dominance. Stories of freedom. High Counselor Vora found himself facing something he had not anticipated. Not just humanity, but the idea of humanity. The concept that smaller species could band together, that they did not have to accept integration, that there was another way. This changes nothing, Delegate Kryn insisted during the emergency session. The Accord has no military force. They cannot challenge our fleet. They do not need to challenge our fleet, Elder Morvax replied. They only need to make us look like tyrants. Every species in the galaxy is watching what we do next. If we crush the Talvosi, we prove the humans right. We show that our treaties are enforced through violence, not consent. And if we withdraw, we show weakness. Perhaps there is a middle path, Grand Inquisitor Palax suggested. We maintain the blockade, but take no aggressive action. We wait. We see what the humans actually do. Because right now, their accord is nothing but words. If they cannot back those words with action, their alliance will collapse on its own. Vorith considered this. It was sound strategy. Call the humans bluff. Force them to either escalate or admit that they could not protect their allies. Agreed. The blockade continues. We wait for humanity's next move. They did not have to wait long. The Council battlecruiser Eternal Dominion was the flagship of the Talvos blockade force. Admiral Thren, a veteran of 40 campaigns, commanded from its bridge. He was confident in his position. 15 battlecruisers against a planet with no defenses. Even if the humans sent ships, they could not match Council firepower. Then his sensor officer reported contact. Admiral, detecting gravitational disturbances at the edge of the system. Multiple sources. They appear to be ships. How many? I cannot determine. The disturbances are too severe. They are disrupting long-range sensors. Thren felt a cold sensation crawl down his spine. Gravitational disturbances that disrupted sensors were not normal. They indicated technology far beyond standard capabilities. All ships, battle stations, shields up, weapons charged. The fleet shifted formation, presenting a unified front to whatever was approaching. What emerged from hyperspace was not a fleet. It was a single ship. But that ship was unlike anything Thren had ever seen. 12 kilometers long, black as the void between galaxies. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. And across its surface, weapon systems glowed with power that made Thren's threat assessment computers scream warnings. Council fleet. A human voice came through the communication system, calm and professional. This is Admiral Helena Cross, aboard the Stellar Accord flagship Burning Dawn. You are blockading a protected world. You have 1 hour to withdraw. This is not a request. Thren stared at the impossible ship on his display. His training told him to respond with force. His instincts told him that would be suicide. Admiral Cross, you are outnumbered 15 to 1. Stand down immediately. I am aware of the numbers, Admiral Thren. Are you aware of mine? The Burning Dawn's weapon systems activated. Not a warning shot. A simple demonstration of capability. Thren's tactical officer went pale. Admiral, those weapons readings? If they are accurate, that single ship carries more firepower than our entire fleet combined. 1 hour. That was what the human had given him. 1 hour to decide whether to test that claim. Thren was a warrior. He had never retreated from a fight in his life. But he was also not a fool. Dying gloriously against impossible odds would serve no purpose. Contact the Council, he ordered. Inform them of the situation. Request instructions. The response came directly from High Counselor Vorith himself. Maintain position. Do not engage. We are sending reinforcements. Thren acknowledged the order. But as he watched the burning dawn hold position, weapons armed and ready, he could not shake the feeling that reinforcements would not be enough. Humanity had revealed a weapon that should not exist. A ship that defied every technological assumption the Council had made. And somewhere out there, hidden in the darkness, there was certainly more. The galaxy was watching. And for the first time in 12,000 years, the Galactic Council looked uncertain. Admiral Cross stood on the bridge of the burning dawn, observing the Council fleet through enhanced displays that showed every detail of their formation. "They are not withdrawing," her tactical officer reported. "I did not expect them to. They are waiting for reinforcements, for permission, for someone else to make the decision." "And when reinforcements arrive?" Cross smiled. It was the smile of someone holding cards that nobody else knew existed. "Then we show them Phase 3. In the depths of space, far from any star, signals were transmitted. Orders were received. And ships that had been waiting for decades began to move. The Council thought they understood the game. They were about to learn that humanity had been playing a very different game all along. The standoff at Talvos lasted 17 days. Council reinforcements arrived, swelling the fleet to over 100 warships. The burning dawn did not flinch. It maintained its position, weapons armed. A single impossible ship facing an armada. And nothing happened. Neither side fired. Neither side withdrew. The galaxy held its breath, watching two powers stare at each other across the void. High Counselor Voreth realized that he needed a different approach. Military force alone would not solve this problem. He needed to understand the humans, to find their weaknesses, to discover the source of their impossible technology. He summoned investigator Nissa of the Mentori. Nissa was legendary among the founding species. A secant, trained since childhood to uncover secrets that others could not even perceive. She had solved mysteries that had baffled civilizations. She had extracted truths from beings who believed themselves beyond examination. If anyone could discover what the humans were hiding, it was her. She arrived on Earth 3 weeks after receiving her assignment. Her shuttle landed at a spaceport in the human city called Geneva, where a delegation waited to greet her. Director James Wright stood at the front of the welcoming party. He was a man of middle years with calm eyes and the bearing of someone who carried enormous responsibility. "Investigator Nissa," he said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Welcome to Earth. We have been expecting you." Nissa accepted the handshake, her senses automatically analyzing everything about the human before her. Elevated heart rate, slight tension in the muscles, controlled breathing designed to project calm. He was nervous, but not afraid. "Director Wright, I am here to understand, to learn, to help bridge the gap between our peoples." "Of course." Wright's smile was perfect and entirely unconvincing. "We have nothing to hide." Nissa smiled in return. Then this should be a productive visit. The investigation that followed was the most challenging of Nissa's career. The humans cooperated with every request. They provided access to facilities, documents, personnel. They answered questions openly and honestly. And yet, something was wrong. Nissa's senses detected patterns that did not fit. Gaps in the information flow. Carefully constructed narratives that were too perfect, too complete. The humans were hiding something, and they were very good at it. She spent weeks observing their society. Their cities were vibrant and diverse. Their people were energetic, creative, endlessly curious. They argued among themselves about everything, yet somehow came together when facing external challenges. It was their unity that puzzled her most. The Council had always assumed that humanity's diversity was a weakness. Different nations, different cultures, different beliefs. Such divisions could be exploited. Wedges could be driven between factions. But whenever Nissa probed for those divisions, she found something unexpected. Beneath the surface disagreements, there was a core of shared identity, a sense of common humanity that transcended borders and ideologies. When threatened from outside, they stopped arguing and started cooperating with frightening efficiency. She reported her observations to Grand Inquisitor Pelax. "The humans are more unified than we anticipated," she said. "Their apparent divisions are superficial. When faced with external pressure, they consolidate rapidly. That is unfortunate, but not catastrophic." "What about their technology? The Burning Dawn?" "That is where my investigation becomes strange. I have visited their manufacturing facilities. I have observed their production capabilities. What I have seen is impressive, but not extraordinary. It does not explain the technology aboard that ship. Then where did it come from?" Nyssa hesitated. "I do not know, but I intend to find out." She intensified her investigation, using every tool at her disposal. Telepathic scans of peripheral thoughts, analysis of energy signatures, pattern recognition across millions of data points, and slowly, she began to find threads, unexplained construction projects deep underground, energy spikes that matched no known human technology, security protocols around certain facilities that exceeded anything she had encountered. There was something beneath the surface, something the humans desperately wanted to keep hidden. Nyssa followed the threads to a region called the Swiss Alps. Satellite imagery showed nothing unusual. Surface scans revealed only rock and ice. But underground, at extreme depths, there were anomalies. She requested access to the area. The humans politely refused, citing security concerns. That refusal told her everything she needed to know. 3 nights later, Nyssa infiltrated the facility. It took every skill she possessed. Security systems that adapted to her presence. Sensors that detected energy signatures she did not know she was emitting. Guards who seemed to anticipate her movements before she made them. But Nyssa was the best investigator the Mentori had ever produced. After hours of careful navigation, she reached the central chamber. What she found there made her stop breathing. The chamber was vast, nearly a kilometer across. Crystalline structures pulsed with energies that defied analysis. Machines of impossible complexity hummed with operations beyond her comprehension. And at the center, suspended in a field of living light, was something that made the Burning Dawn look like a child's toy. A gateway. A portal to somewhere else. Director Wright's voice came from behind her. "You found it faster than we expected." Nyssa spun around. Wright stood in the chamber entrance, accompanied by Colonel Torres and a security detail. They were not pointing weapons at her. They were simply waiting. "What is this place?" Nyssa demanded. "What is that device?" "This is the reason we refused your treaties." Wright walked toward the gateway, its light playing across his features. "And you are the reason we are going to explain everything." "Explain? Why would you explain anything to me?" "Because the Council is not our enemy, investigator." They never were. They were just in the way. Wright gestured toward the gateway, and images began to appear within its light. Images that made Nyssa's blood run cold. Destruction. Absolute destruction. Worlds burning. Stars dying. Species screaming into the void as something vast and terrible consumed them. 60 years ago, Wright said, we made contact with beings from beyond this galaxy. They called themselves the Architects. They were ancient beyond measure, advanced beyond comprehension. They had been fighting a war for longer than our species has existed. A war against what? Against that. Wright pointed at the images of destruction. An enemy that moves between galaxies, consuming everything in its path. It destroyed 100 civilizations before the Council ever existed. It is why the Architects left this region of space 10,000 years ago. They retreated, regrouped, prepared. Nissa stared at the impossible images. And they contacted you? Humanity? They found us. They saw something in our species that they needed. Some quality that their own people had lost over the millennia of fighting. They gave us their technology. They taught us how to build. And they told us what was coming. What is coming? Wright's expression was grim. The enemy. The darkness that hunted them across the cosmos. It has been approaching this galaxy for centuries. And in approximately 30 years, it will arrive. Nissa processed this information with the trained efficiency of a secant. If this was true, if even a fraction of it was accurate, then everything she thought she knew about galactic politics was irrelevant. You refused the treaties because they would have limited your ability to prepare. Exactly. The Integration Compact would have bound us to Council authority. We would have been just another member species, following their rules, limited by their bureaucracy. And when the enemy arrives, the Council's way of doing things will not be enough. Nissa looked at the gateway, at the images of cosmic destruction, at the humans who had discovered something that changed everything. Why tell me this? Why not keep it secret? Wright met her eyes directly. Because when that darkness arrives, we will need everyone, including the Council, including species that currently see us as a threat. We cannot afford enemies, investigator. We can only afford allies. He reached into his pocket and produced a small crystalline device. This is a communicator. It will allow you to contact the architect intelligence that oversees our preparation. They want you to carry a message back to the Council. A warning. An invitation. Nissa took the device. Its surface hummed with energies that confirmed Wright's claims about alien technology. What message? That humanity is not their enemy. That we never were. And that when the darkness comes, we will need to stand together, or we will all fall separately. Nissa looked at the gateway one last time. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. I will deliver your message, she said. But I cannot promise the Council will believe it. They do not need to believe it immediately. They just need to stop fighting us long enough for us to prove it. Nissa paused at the doorway. 30 years. Is that really all the time we have? Wright's answer was quiet, heavy with the weight of terrible knowledge. If the architects are right, it might be less. Nissa left the facility with more questions than answers. But one thing was certain. The galaxy was about to change forever, one way or another, and humanity intended to lead that change, the Galactic Council. Chamber fell silent as investigator Nissa completed her testimony. The holographic displays showed the images she had brought from Earth, the destruction, the darkness, the enemy that consumed stars and devoured civilizations. 700 delegates sat frozen in their seats, processing information that shattered everything they believed about the galaxy. High. Counselor Vorath stood at the center of the chamber, his geometric form cycling through colors that indicated profound disturbance. For 3 centuries, he had controlled this council. He had managed threats, resolved disputes, maintained order. Nothing had ever prepared him for this. You are saying, Vorath said slowly, that humanity has been preparing to save us. All of us, from something that we did not know existed. That is exactly what I am saying, Nissa replied. The humans did not refuse our treaties because they wanted to conquer us. They refused because the Integration Compact would have prevented them from doing what they believe is necessary. Delegate Kryn rose from his seat. The massive warrior looked smaller than he had before, humbled by the scale of what he had witnessed. And this enemy, this darkness, it is real? Not some human deception? I accessed the architect database through the communicator they provided. What I found, though, was consistent with the oldest records in our own archives. Stories we dismissed as mythology. Legends of something that hunted the architects across the cosmos for millions of years. It is real, Delegate Kryn. And it is coming. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted over each other. Ancient alliances cracked under the weight of fear. Some demanded immediate military action against the humans. Others called for surrender. A few sat in stunned silence, unable to process what they had heard. Ambassador Victor Kane stepped forward from the human observation section. He waited for the chaos to subside before speaking. The Council has dominated this galaxy for 12,000 years, Kane said. You have controlled trade, technology, military power, and diplomatic relations for longer than most species have existed. You built an empire by absorbing others into your system. We built civilization, Vorath countered. You built control. And now you face a choice. Kane looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates who quickly looked away. You can continue as you have always continued. Maintain your power, your authority, your treaties. Fight among yourselves while pretending the darkness is not coming. And when it arrives, you will fall, separately, alone, or you can accept that the galaxy has changed, that you are no longer the most powerful force in existence. That survival requires something you have never truly practiced. What is that? Kane's voice carried across the silent chamber. Partnership. Genuine equality. Working together with species you once considered primitives, including humanity. The silence that followed was different from the chaos before. This silence was thoughtful, calculating. Elder Morvax, the ancient Mindari leader, spoke through telepathic projection. And if we agree to this partnership, what happens to the Council? To our treaties? To the system that has maintained order for millennia? That system served its purpose for its time, Kane replied. But its time is ending. The treaties will need to be rewritten. Every species will need an equal voice. The Council will continue to exist, but as a coordinating body, not a ruling authority. You ask us to give up power. I ask you to survive. Grand Inquisitor Palax's crystalline spheres rotated slowly. The humans have been preparing for 60 years. They have ships, technology, training that we cannot match. If we agree to their terms, we become dependent on them. We replace Council dominance with human dominance. No. Director James Wright stepped forward to stand beside Kane. The architects did not give us their technology so we could rule the galaxy. They gave it to us so we could protect it. When the darkness comes, humanity will lead the defense. But we cannot fight alone. We need Thresk warriors, Velore engineers, Mindari coordinators. Every species has something to contribute. And after? When the enemy is defeated? Wright met Palax's gaze directly. If we survive, the galaxy will be changed forever. Old powers will have proven their worth or their weakness. New alliances will have been forged in battle. Humanity will not seek to dominate what emerges from that crucible. We never wanted power over others. We only wanted freedom. High Counselor Vorath raised a limb of light. The ancient being had presided over this council longer than most delegates had been alive. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had witnessed countless species believe they could resist council authority, only to be absorbed or destroyed. But he had never seen anything like the images Nisa had shown. He had never faced an enemy that made the council's power seem insignificant. I will put it to a vote, Vorath announced. All delegates will decide. Partnership with humanity and restructuring of the council system, or continued resistance and isolation. The voting took 3 hours. Ancient powers debated fiercely. Alliances shifted as delegates reconsidered positions they had held for centuries. Some voted against partnership out of pride. Others voted for it out of fear. When the final tally was announced, the result was overwhelming. 612 delegates voted to accept humanity's proposal. The Galactic Council after 12,000 years of dominance, had agreed to change. The next 30 years passed faster than anyone expected. The blockade at Talvos ended within days of the vote. Council fleets withdrew. Diplomatic channels opened. And humanity began sharing the technology that the architects had provided. The transformation was not easy. Species that had been enemies for millennia learned to work together. Old grudges had to be set aside. New systems of cooperation had to be built from nothing. But slowly, painfully, the galaxy united. Shipyards that once produced battlecruisers for Council enforcement now built vessels designed to fight an enemy from beyond the stars. Training programs brought together warriors from every species, teaching them to coordinate in ways that had never been attempted. Ambassador Kane oversaw the diplomatic negotiations that created the new accord, a governing body where every species had equal representation. Director Wright coordinated the military preparations, working with officers from former enemy fleets to develop strategies against an opponent no one had ever faced, and Admiral Helena Cross, from the bridge of the Burning Dawn, commanded a fleet that grew larger each year. Human dreadnoughts flew alongside Thresk battleships. Velori crystal destroyers operated in formation with Mindari mineships. The combined force was larger than anything the galaxy had ever assembled. It was still not enough. When the darkness arrived, it came without warning. Sensors across the galactic edge detected the approaching wave. Billions of entities, if entities was even the right word for things that existed partially outside normal space. They consumed stars. They devoured worlds. They swept through the outer regions like a plague of shadows. The first defensive line fell within weeks. 12 systems gone. Hundreds of billions of lives extinguished. But the line had not been meant to hold. It had been designed to slow the advance, to gather intelligence, to test the enemy's capabilities. What they learned was terrifying, and also, unexpectedly, hopeful. The darkness was not invincible. It could be hurt. It could be driven back. The weapons designed by the architects, refined by human engineers, enhanced by contributions from every species in the Accord, proved effective. The war that followed would last for years. Worlds would burn. Species would suffer losses that would take generations to recover. Heroes would rise and fall. Legends would be written in blood and fire. But humanity led the defense, as the architects had foreseen, as Director Wright had planned, as Ambassador Kane had promised. In the final battle, when the darkness made its last desperate push toward the galactic core, it was the Burning Dawn that held the line. Admiral Cross, now elderly, but still commanding from her bridge, coordinated a fleet that represented every species in the galaxy. Council battlecruisers flew wing to wing with human dreadnoughts. Thresk warriors fought alongside humans on space stations that had once been forbidden to outsiders. Mindari telepaths linked the minds of commanders across light years, enabling coordination that should have been impossible. And when the darkness finally broke, when its advance shattered against the combined will of a united galaxy, the cheers that erupted crossed every border and boundary. They had won. Together. In the aftermath, as the galaxy began to rebuild, High Counselor Vorith requested a private meeting with Ambassador Kane. They met on the observation deck of the Unity, looking out at stars that had almost been extinguished. 60 years ago, Vorith said, a human ambassador stood in our chamber and said no. I thought it was madness, arrogance, a primitive species that did not understand its place. Kane smiled slightly. And now? Now I understand that we were the ones who did not understand. We had grown comfortable, complacent. We believed our power was absolute. We never imagined that something greater than ourselves existed, or that we would need to change to survive. The galaxy is different now. Yes, and I believe it is better for it. Voreth's geometric form flickered with something that might have been gratitude. Humanity saw what we could not. You prepared when we would not. And when the moment came, you led us to victory. We led together. Every species contributed. Every sacrifice mattered. Voreth was silent for a long moment. Then he extended a limb of light toward Cain. The Council once saw humanity as a threat. Now we see you as partners, allies, friends. Whatever comes next, we will face it together. Cain accepted the gesture, human hand meeting alien light. That is all we ever wanted, High Counselor. Not to rule, not to conquer, just to stand as equals, and together to survive. Outside the observation window, the stars burned bright in a galaxy that had been saved by the most unlikely of champions. Humanity had said no to treaties designed to enslave them, and in doing so, they had freed everyone. The darkness was defeated. The accord stood strong, and for the first time in recorded history, every species in the galaxy looked toward the future not with fear, but with hope. Because of humanity, because they had never given up, because they had shown the galaxy what it meant to truly stand together. The end was not an end at all. It was a beginning, and the best was yet to come.